This is Chip Maxwell, and you're listening to the Retire Smart podcast with David Brooks. Today, David and Chip discuss the M2 money supply and its potential contraction and the implications for the economy. Plus, the Supreme Court's decision granting DOGE expanded access to Social Security data, weighing the concerns about privacy against the goal of government efficiency. Finally, they examine America's secret weapon in its economic competition with China. David, I do want to get to that DOGE story in the Supreme Court, but first, you sent the team a chart about M2 money supply. In the first segment of the show, we were talking about, well, the Fed's nervous about reigniting inflation. Everybody's got an eye on inflation. Inflation, we usually worry about M2, which was the economic term for our money supply. We're worried about it expanding too much, too fast, too many dollars, chasing too few goods, and so forth. But you sent out a chart and shared your concern about a possible contraction in the money supply. What are you worried about?
So the money supply typically grows right around the inflation rate, 3.5% a year. And we've got data going way back. So there's going to be more dollars floating around, right? More money out in the economy. And that's good if it's in a controlled. But when we get these bazookas of money blasted out, as we did and started way back in TARP in 2009 to save
Troubled
the economy.
Asset Relief
and then quantitative easing, they started cranking out dollars. And of course, during COVID, $5.7 trillion.
Payments.
So and the chart shows you the explosion of the money supply. Well, that's what inflation is caused by. I often hold up, sometimes I'll have like a bowl of 10 apples and explain how inflation really works. If $10 was all the currency in the world and 10 apples were the only products in the world, how much does an apple cost?
$1 an apple.
$1.
Yeah.
If I increase the money supply to $20, how much does the apple cost?
Cha-ching, now they're all $2 each.
It's more dollars chasing less goods. That's inflation, bar none. Now, what happens, though, is so we don't want money supply to continue growing rapidly. We want it to grow at a modest pace. But when money supply contracts, especially over short term or even cycles, 4 or 5 year cycles, money's being sucked out of the economy, liquidity's pulled away. That is not good for markets. And we have a rolling 4-year where we're in this cycle right now where money supply is starting to contract on a longer term basis. That creates some problems, and that could create some havoc coming down the road. So it is something I watch every week, how much money's actually in the economy. And just to understand, M2's cash, money markets, cash-like derivatives in all banks in America, et cetera, all the liquid capital that people have. This is not dollars invested in stocks, et cetera. And so that money supply is important to watch. And right now, there's over $7 trillion in these type of accounts. But the liquidity is drying up, especially at the larger commercial banks. And we've talked about this for many reasons. The commercial real estate is really imploding on these banks. They're having to sell properties at pennies on the dollar. They're trying to clear their balance sheet up. When they do that, they have to take some of their cash, the bank's cash, to pay off the debt they lost money. And then they're doing this quickly and quietly. But as we sit here today, there are over $600 billion in unrealized losses on the top 200 banks in America today. They're all insolvent. If you did any traditional accounting, like when I went to school, the banks are all insolvent. And so that is a concern. Like we talked about it a while back, the slow run on the banks last year, right? Is it happening?
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, it's happening. Well, if everybody went and withdrew their money today, I'm not saying go do this, but that would create some havoc. I mean, you can walk into a bank. My wife had to purchase something last year. I walked into a local bank and it was asking for $7,500 in cash, right? Not that exorbitant amount. They didn't have it. You have to come back Thursday. We don't keep that kind of cash in a bank.
Wow. Yeah.
That's pretty eye-opening, right? That these branches, some of them don't have $10,000 in the branch, right? So
we're back to the Bailey Savings and Loan during the Depression.
Your money, George, is in Barbara's house over there, right?
Yeah. Well, actually taken to the extreme. I mean, that's what happened in the Great Depression, right? I mean, the economy lost something like a third of its capital. And we are a consumer-driven economy. We got to have capital sloshing around out there, people spending money.
And on the downside of it, the Fed is easing regulations on how much what we call Tier 1 capital these banks have to have on hand. But just so you know, it's single digits. Most of these banks have about 8 to 9 cents on the dollar. So when you deposit $100,000, maybe you buy a certificate of disappointment from the bank. Woohoo, I'm getting 4% interest. Oh, wait, inflation's 2.5%, and you get taxed on it. Oh, I didn't make any money. But anyway, a CD, certificate of deposit, the bank doesn't go throw that $100,000 in the vault and lock the door. they have to take that money and then lend it out or turn the dollars over, the velocity of money, to make money to be able to pay you said interest rate. And so they make what's called net margin spread. They if they're paying you 4%, they're going to charge somebody else 7 or 8, right, on a car loan, house loan, credit cards, whatever, and make the difference. So what happens is if you go to withdraw your money, well, they only have about 10 cents of that 100,000, on the dollar in the vault. So you can't get your 100 grand out. And so you might have to call, like I did, say, make an appointment to show back up 3 days later to get what I didn't think is an exorbitant amount of money out. But anyway, it's the crazy times. Pay attention. Don't get harmed.
David, I do want to get to this DOGE story now. Department of Government Efficiency. Now, here's the Market Watch headline. And I want to get your take because Market Watch seems to be kind of casting a dark cloud over this. So the headline is, DOGE's expanded Social Security access raises fresh privacy fears. The stakes are very high. So, so DOGE gets access to Social Security. DOGE, of course, is trying to root out fraud in government. But the concern here is private information, gender, immigration status, bank account numbers, medical data, that all of this could be at risk. Do you share MarketWatch's concern about this victory for DOGE in the Supreme Court?
Not at all. I'm happy for the victory. So imagine you're trying to run a company and you hire somebody to audit your books. Hey, listen, I want you to go to audit Chip. He's in my marketing department. Audit where they're spending money on our radio ads. And you're like, well, I'm not going to show you. I'm just spending this much. You can't see where, who, how much, which ad I placed where, right?
Doesn't sound like much of an audit.
Well, and I don't think you'd have a job very long, right? But that's what we have going on at the federal government. These are government employees. They are officially signed on as government employees. They have clearance, security clearance. They've been vetted, and they're simply trying to look at the data to see if we can become more efficient, which I think all Americans want. There was a pretty big mandate at the election, and it's not political. It's like, hey, we don't want waste and frauds. You mentioned fraud. It's the waste I'm more concerned with. Okay. We had Social Security checks going out to people that were no longer alive. They've corrected some of that. And they're just trying to figure out where the flaws are in the system. I mean, we want the system to last, right? Well, you'd want to make sure you have an accounting of it. And I don't think that's unreasonable. We talked about on the show, when you retire, and we do a lot of federal benefit employees here, Chip, when you retire from the federal government in Iron Mountain, Pennsylvania, literally somebody gets on a bicycle and bikes into the mountain and goes into a treasure trove of files that are in these old Filofax files to pull your file. And it took on average 2 to 4 months to process somebody's retirement. That has all been digitized with DOGE, and they've literally just launched within the last 10 days a new digital form of retirement. Somebody can be retired now in 3 days from the federal government. That's efficiency.
Yeah.
Right? And imagine if we did that to all departments of the government. And why is anybody pushing back on this? Oh, would somebody maybe have some fingers in the cookie jar? I don't know.
Say it ain't so. Well, we'll keep an eye on how that plays out. Fox Business headline, David. Expert reveals America's secret weapon against long-term competition with China. This is Michael Pillsbury. Speaking on Varney and Company on the Fox network, and he is worried about China's leverage with us regarding rare earths. In fact, that was mentioned in the president's statement, but says we have a secret weapon. What's the secret weapon?
Well, there are other places you can get rare earth minerals, which is why Trump is so.
Ukraine comes to mind.
Yeah,
we just did a deal with Ukraine.
Greenland, Iceland, and actually in Canada. And so we have several neighbors that we used to be friendly with, if you will, but that have the opportunity to mine these. And then here in the U.S., there's several deposits in a few key states. So understanding rare earth minerals are certain minerals that are really needed for high-end manufacturing because you can use them. They can take heat, so they worked in processors. A lot of the chips and the technology, your phone, your iPhone or Samsung or whatever you have, has a ton of rare earths in it. And China is the most active miner of such minerals in the globe. And right now, they're about 90% of all sold rare earth minerals, but they don't control 90% of the supply. They do control a large quantity of it. But until we get manufacturing in these other locations and trade deals up where we can confidently know we're going to have the inflow we need of these particular minerals, et cetera, China's a key ingredient for us. So that's their bargaining chip to us. However, again, the secret weapon is we talk about 1,800 factories closed in 30 days. They had unrest, and China's pretty good with their media, right? Communist state control media, so you don't see it, but there are riots in the street. Speaking of riots, we haven't got to what happened in LA this week. But anyway, China has had that going on because people are starving there. When the Liberation Day went on, the tariffs were announced, all American companies stopped ordering product, right? And that hurt China desperately, which is why they came to the negotiating table and are at least looking to try and get something done. Again, in a perfect world, everything works out for everybody, but we know that's not reality. And so we need to hold our cards tight to the vest. China does, in my opinion, economically needs us more than we need them.
To that point, Pillsbury, who's with the Heritage Foundation, says the key for our side is unleashing our own economy. So we're never in a position of desperation when we're dealing with them.
We don't want to reshore, making T-shirts, right? That's just not productivity of the old textile mills that we had here in the U.S. But we do want to reshore certain jobs and our certain industries that are due to national security, and that would be the construction of ships, right? Our Navy, instead of contracting that out to European countries, and pharmaceuticals, right? 96% of all pharmaceuticals in the U.S., everybody that's dependent on taking these pills, come from China. That's kind of scary. But anyway, yeah, I will look forward to this getting settled soon, and maybe that helps the economy, but I would be very, very doubtful that we have a robust economy here in the fall. I just think job market's going to get really, really weak.
Thank you for listening to the Retire Smart podcast with David Brooks. If you want to learn how to generate lifetime income, reduce your tax bill, and maintain your lifestyle in retirement, visit retiresmartpodcast.com. And make sure to subscribe to keep up with new episodes every week.